The Ugly Duckling by Head First. Once upon a time, there was a mother duck sitting on 4 eggs. 3 of the eggs were gray, but 1 egg was bigger and white. Since this was the first clutch of eggs Mother Duck had ever laid, she took care to keep all the eggs warm. One day, the gray eggs began to crack. That day, she stayed with the eggs so she could see her new ducklings as soon as they hatched. Before the sun rose, the 3 gray eggs had hatched into yellow ducklings. She stood up to admire her brood, but saw that the biggest egg was still there. She kept sitting on the egg for 2 more days. Finally, in the evening, she saw a crack. At last, my final egg is hatching, she said. Cheep, cheep, cried the long-necked gray bird. Mother Duck saw that he looked very different from the rest of her ducklings. What a handsome duckling you are, she said, and held him close to her. The next day, she led the babies to the water. You need to learn to swim, said Mother Duck. She paddled into the water and began to swim. Soon, all the little ducklings were swimming in a line behind her. Did you ever see a duckling as ugly as that? Asked another duck that they were swimming by. One of the other ducks ran to chase him away. Leave him alone, said Mother Duck. He just looks different, but has done nothing wrong. The ducklings practiced swimming every day. As they learned to swim and fish, his brothers and sister were mean to him. You are so ugly, said one duckling. I'm glad I'm not like you, said another. That night, on the way back to the nest, the ugly duckling wandered off alone. He was glad to be by himself, where nobody could be mean to him. He made a little nest and fell asleep. In the morning he woke up with a bang, bang. Shots rang out. Whole flocks of geese and ducks flew up from the rushes. The ugly duckling could not fly, so he ran along, trying to get as far away from the noise and the hunter's dogs as he could. He thought he had found a place to hide, but one of the dogs found him. The duckling tried to hide his eyes under his wing. Just then the dog heard a noise and ran off. I'm too ugly even for the dog to eat me, thought the ugly duckling. The duckling rested and then walked on. Many days passed, and the ugly duckling was getting bigger. He found many ponds and lakes to swim and fish in, but the other ducks were never nice to him. He saw some other birds that were swimming and fishing. They were large and white and very beautiful. The ugly duckling swam over to the birds to admire them. "Hello, friend," said one of the birds. "I haven't seen you swimming here before." "Please don't hurt me," said the ugly duckling. "I know that I am an ugly duckling." Another bird said, "You are not an ugly duckling. You are not a duck at all. You are a beautiful swan. Look." The ugly duckling looked at himself in the water. He looked just like the other birds. "I'm not an ugly duckling. I'm a beautiful swan," he said proudly. As an ugly duckling, he had been very unhappy. But now that he knew he was not a duck, but a swan, he felt he belonged, and that made him feel very happy.